Now, how is everyone doing today? Good, good. Now, who here, is this your first time coming to the Culinary Arts Center? Okay, a few people. Well, welcome. As you heard, my name is Lori, and I am your party planner on board, part of your explorations team, and this is our Culinary Arts Center. Actually, about 3 or 4 years ago now, Food and Wine Magazine and Holland America Line paired up to bring these fully working kitchens. They invested $15 million, so $1 million into each one of the ships in the fleet to bring these wonderful working kitchens. So we're able to offer you all sorts of demonstrations with our chefs on board, but this week we are very, very lucky to have 2 guest chefs on board with us up until Barbados. And who here was here for them yesterday? Okay, great, great, great. Well, welcome back, and thank you all for coming. But today, what we're going to be doing, or what, again, they're going to be doing, as I don't really do much of the cooking up here, what they're going to be demonstrating today is something that's more of a Caribbean-inspired, since we are in the Caribbean, right? So they will be making a Jamaican Jerk Duck Breast. So it sounds very good, and you'll all get a chance to try that out. So please help me welcome our 2 guest chefs from this cruise, Shanna and Brian O'Hay. Come on down, guys. Well, good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining us again today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're excited to be back.
Yeah. Well, great, great. Yeah. So you're going to be making this Caribbean-inspired dish, correct?
We are.
Yes?
We're, up in Maine. It's about 15 degrees, so the duck is kind of a prevalent item menu. But we figured, how could we put a spin on it to get it to this warm weather?
Well, great, great. All right, well, we'll leave you to it. And remember, if anyone ever has any questions, just raise your hand. I'll be coming around with the microphone so we can get those questions answered. So.
Perfect.
Great. Perfect. So what we got here is a little bit of a duck breast that we haven't scored yet. Duck, I think, gets a bad rap. I don't think people realize how healthy it is for you. It's actually lower in protein than chicken is, higher in protein. And once you render off that fat, it really is good. And the duck fat itself isn't that necessarily bad of a fat. I know a lot of people use bacon fat for eggs. Duck fat would be a much healthier substitution.
Yeah, it's great actually for French fries. They're delicious fried in duck fat.
So we're just going to score our breast real quick here. And this is just to help the rendering. So the smaller you make the hash marks on it, the easier it'll be for the fat to render out.
Yeah, we always reserve all the duck fat at our restaurant, and I make a duck rillette, which is basically a confit duck leg, and then you just kind of, you can do it by hand with a fork, and you just add a little bit of duck fat as you go along. It's kind of like making tuna fish in a way, and it comes out this nice pate, essentially. And then you can just put a little duck fat to cover the top of it, and it can stay in your fridge for 6 weeks, because that fat then preserves it. So it is a very good fat, and then you get dual utilization, which is nice.
So duck is one of the items, few at least red meat kind of proteins that you don't want a real hot pan cooking in, because you want that fat to slowly render out. So the hotter the pan is, it'll almost kind of lock up that fat. So you kind of want to place it in the pan and let it go nice and slow, and kind of just pour out the fat as you go along. And you can reserve that fat for what Shanna was just talking about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make our Caribbean jerk marinade. And this is something you can kind of play around with to your own flavor profiles. But we're going to start off with a little bit of zested orange and orange segments. And Shanna and I both use orange zest a ton, and all citrus zest in the restaurant. I kind of feel like it's underutilized. We use it to make pasta doughs and flavorings for cocktails. I feel like too many people throw out the rind.
Yeah, the tool Brian's using this is a really small one, but it's a microplane. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but that's a great tool to have in your kitchen. It's good for chocolate, for Parmesan cheese, for nutmeg. So it's they're sharp and they work really well. This is a very mini one. That's our traveling one.
So we have some orange segments. I already chopped it up because I didn't want to constantly get the heat on my fingers, but we have a Scotch bonnet, which is one of the hotter peppers. You can certainly use jalapeno, but this is something you always kind of want to take a little bit of a bite on before you put it into anything to see where the heat is. This one happens to be a little spicy. The one that I made for you guys isn't as spicy, so that's good. A little fresh ginger, a little Chinese five spice, a little bit of brown sugar, some fresh thyme. Can you grab me the garlic out of the fridge? And I use a little bit of maple syrup. That sweetness will kind of help cut some of that heat.
Now, what exactly is your definition on jerk seasoning?
Jerk seasoning can be a little bit different, you know, depending on the variants. I mean, a lot of times it has have to have that sweet heat. So that's where the orange segment, the sugar comes in, and then you're going to get a little bit of that back heat. Jerks are also, as you'll see, is when we finish it, it's not as much of a sauce as almost like a crust when you finish the product off. So we just have a little bit of roasted garlic.
I'm just going to step so that you can see the fat that's rendering off on this duck breast. And so this is when you just want to pour it off in just a reserved container. And I'll just take a little, we're just starting to get a little bit of color on that. So we're just going to keep going.
So we're going to get a nice little blend on that. A little salt and pepper. And that's going to be the basis for our marinade. And the reason why we're rendering the duck first is because we kind of want to get rid of that fat, because if you try and put the marinade on before and try and render it again, all that sugar is going to caramelize and is going to burn the top of the duck breast. So that's why we're kind of starting off with the cooking of the duck breast first.
I just turned it up.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So we got a nice sizzle going. And I just need a...
Mentioned that you want to have the duck on a relatively low heat. What would you suggest, like medium low? How low would that be?
I would definitely start it off on a low to medium, and then as it starts to render, you can certainly kind of build it up and really try and intensify. But you just want to make sure, especially for this dish, because of the sugar included, that it will not, get too brown, because then the sugars will start to scorch.
Yeah, even though the Jamaican jerk is certainly associated with chicken a lot, I think it's really nice on fish or shrimp. So it's a great marinade for seafood as well. Right, yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, we're going to take this out.
Do you want to just wait?
Oh, we could, yeah, why don't you do the banana?
Okay. Okay, so I'll start working on the banana chutney. And this is something that actually Brian created to go with, we get gorgeous, beautiful Maine diver scallops in Maine. And he paired this banana chutney with those, and we did a little caramel sesame crisp, and just when we were thinking banana is just such a nice flavor with seafood and poultry and pork. It's got this creaminess to it, and so we've utilized this a lot more. It's got that nice Caribbean flair. So this particular chutney, you want to actually start out with. It's almost like making guacamole. I don't know if anyone makes homemade guacamole, but it's sort of those same components, and really just the banana is being a substitution for the avocado. So we've got the jalapeno already chopped up here. A little bit of cilantro. We're going to use honey, again, as our sweetener.
What would you suggest as a substitute for cilantro, since not many people, or a lot of people, don't really like the flavor?
Really, I absolutely love cilantro. I'm a huge guacamole fan and huge, I love Mexican food. So you definitely could use parsley. obviously that would be very easy because it looks the same. People often mistake them because the leaf is so similar, and that's a very neutral flavor. You could put chives in there if you wanted to.
Winter time, you could certainly use sage and kind of give it that fall, winter.
Right.
But that you would want to chop up very fine because it can kind of have that
exactly
thicker texture.
I was going to say, forgetting the name of the herb, little small leaf.
Not thyme.
No, I'm forgetting it. It'll come to me.
Starts with an M.
Marjoram, no, that wasn't the one I was thinking of. You actually, though, could put basil in this, which would be really nice. Basil, the only problem with it, as soon as you cut into it, it starts to brown a little bit. So that would be the only negative part of that. Did I get that fork? Oh, and the zester, please. Thank you. So we're going to add also, again, I should have done this before I cut the lime, but we're going to add that lime zest as well. And then we're going to just juice the lime in here. And what the nice thing about the lime, with just, it's going to provide that beautiful acidity that's going to cut the richness of the duck, but it's also going to help keep our banana looking white and not getting all brown. So this is definitely something, this part you could make ahead of time, but then the banana would be the last thing you would want to chop and add to it if you're planning this as a meal. So we also just like to sort of cut this up just in like a small dice. So you're going to get some of the chunkiness of it. And then I just need some salt and pepper. Perfect.
So at this point, that's kind of as far as you want to take the duck. So it's got a nice golden crisp to it, but it's not overly rendered. And then this is actually now some of that fat is going to help to flavor that marinade. So again, this is probably something we'll probably wind up doing for Super Bowl at our house, because this is all things that you can do way ahead of time. Because I'm going to put the marinade on it, and then we're going to actually leave it in that marinade overnight. And you can put that right into like a casserole dish, or even on a sheet tray, a hotel pan, and then the next day all you would have to do is take that out of your refrigerator, put it into the oven at a 350. Duck usually can be served I like medium rare, but most people tend to kind of go medium. So you would leave it in like a 350 degree oven for about, I would say, 25 minutes, half hour tops, just to get the chill off, and then you'll be able to slice into it and have a nice duck over. What we're going to do next is an endive salad. Now, endive is, again, I think, another one of the underappreciated greens. It does have a bitterness to it, and if you want to get some of that bitterness out, you can actually soak it again for like almost overnight in a little bit of kosher salt, and then rinse it off, and the salt will kind of take out some of that bitterness, but I kind of enjoy the bitterness of it. So
yeah, so with the chutney, you're just going to, lightly fold this all together. And then, again, if you weren't serving this right away, I would just take some plastic wrap and put it directly touching the chutney. That'll help, too, with the oxidation.
Oxidation.
That's it for this.
And a little salt and pepper with the endive. And I think there's so much flavor packed into the chutney and the duck itself that this is just going to need a little simple olive oil drizzle.
Yeah, so we cooked a duck ahead of time, because the other important part of cooking all meats really is resting time. You always want to let your meats rest, because if you cut them as soon as they come out of the oven, the juices are just going to flow out, and that's how you get, dry chicken, dry turkey. So that's a real important step, and for a breast like this, probably 5 minutes is going to be fine. That's enough resting time. The bigger the meat, the more time you'd want to add on to the resting.
If you're letting your meat rest.
Oh, sorry, I've got a question here, and then what's up?
depending on the temperature, or if you take it out and you're worried about it overcooking, you would certainly remove it from the pan that was in the oven. So that'll initially stop the cooking process. But you kind of want the resting just will let the moisture kind of go back into the. Thanksgiving, I would say, is the perfect thing where people pull the turkey out and they carve into it right away, and that's why people say turkeys are always dry, because people don't let them sit enough. Turkey, it's amazing, will hold its heat for hours.
Yeah.
So you can take it out and then slice into it perfectly moist, still has the heat.
Just
Throw
have
a
that
little
really
gravy
hot
on
gravy, and that'll, bring it up to that warmer temperature. But then you've got that delicious moist turkey. So yeah. What was your?
Yeah, and that's essentially what the question was going to be: is how do you make sure that you're still serving your meals hot if you're letting that meat rest?
Right. So. And again, I mean, to have that, getting your juices distributed, it may not be, piping hot, but your sauces, your sides, everything else combined with that, I think is what makes the meal complete. For me, some of the best meals in the world combine hot and cold. Perfect examples, hot fudge sundae. It's just, that hot fudge and that cold ice cream, it's perfection. So I think, and that's what we like to do is, again, this cold salad, warm duck, and then the banana chutney. I think it's a good mouthfeel, hits you on many levels. So this is a great, you can do it as you're going to be served, just a small sample. That would be a great appetizer, but also, this could be a full meal, more of like a compost salad, a nice healthy, nice dish.
And then this would be our take on a Caribbean duck salad. So you'll see the nice crisp when you get the portions passed out. The skin will have a nice texture, a nice crispy, crunchy texture. The meat itself will be nice and tender. And then Shannon had mentioned earlier, I really like in the banana compote, almost do like a different style of a guacamole. So you'll get that creaminess, a little bit of heat from the jalapeno, and then the lime will kind of really brighten that up.
Right. Okay. Well, we're getting samples.
Any questions? If you can't get duck, you can certainly use chicken. You can use Cornish game hens would certainly work. Yeah, I mean, any type of poultry. Pork would even, I think, work with this dish as well.
Right, and you could use chicken legs or chicken breasts, either way. Again, classic Jamaican jerk is, more of the leg and thigh meat. So yeah.
Do you get the duck fresh, or can it be a frozen product?
Whether the duck is fresh or frozen, I mean, you can certainly purchase a frozen duck and let it slack out. When you're, sometimes actually when you're scoring the duck fat, having a more of a chill or even a little bit of a frozenness, you can actually score the duck breast a lot easier because the fat's not moving around. The duck looks so much like meat. It's just the nature of the animal. I mean, it's a darker. Yeah.
Right, and it can be a little scary when you're thinking this is poultry. Oh, I can eat this, medium rare. I know that gets concerning for people because chicken, we all want it fully cooked. So I know that can be a little confusing, but it's definitely it's best when it's more medium rare.
Any other questions? Oh.
Yes. $375 or $350 is fine. Quite frankly, everyone's oven's a little different. We've cooked at many people's houses and gone to different places, and so I always just stick my hand in there and say, okay, is this a fast oven or a slow oven? It's funny, our house, we got to redo our kitchen, and we got this gorgeous Viking stove, and it is so much more powerful than the stove at our restaurant. And so we were burning food, and we're chefs in our home, oven. So those temperatures, we try to give you the best advice as we can, but again, it's always, go with your gut, look at it a bit more, and feeling too. I don't know if you know the test for feeling sort of meats to know for temperatures, but with your hand, when you feel right here, this is going to be a rare, that feeling there. When you tighten it all the way up, when you feel there, that's going to be well. And again, just sort of as you loose and go along, before temperatures, it was rare, medium, well, now we have mid-rare, we have I want it medium but pink. You know, it's very confusing for, I think, all of us.
And even for us, like at the restaurant, we always keep our convection ovens at like 400, 415, because we're constantly going in and out of the oven.
Right.
So that the amount of temperature that's released as soon as an oven door is opened is incredible. I mean, it'll drop 75 degrees.
And
like
again,
that.
if you're using convection, that's going to be circulating that heat, so it's going to cook faster. So then, too, you'd want to just scale back the time or just the temperature a little bit.
Any other questions?
What was it? Popcorn with what? Just like on top?
Instead of probably butter. I mean,
Right, yeah.
that sounds pretty good to me. I wonder where we can get that. We might have to steal that idea.
Yes.
You mentioned French fries and duck fat.
Yes.
How does that work?
So yeah, I mean, it just is just like any, like, you know, we fry with canola oil, but you can buy buckets of duck fat,
Yeah.
and I think it's quite affordable, actually.
It's actually a lot cheaper than some oils.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
cook it from scratch? You cook the French fries?
right,
Yep.
with French fries,
I
you.
heard something about pre-cooked and
Some people do. They'll
I was gonna say absolutely. When you do a French fry, you definitely want to do a double fry. You fry them first, just to get the potato cooked. You don't really want to get any color on
and
them.
that's at a lower temp.
Exactly, and then you want to fry them again, and that's when you get your crunchiness to it.
At the
That's
higher
very
temp,
important.
yeah.
And you also have to let them soak in water and leach out some of the starch. I usually do like a triple soak
French
on
fry
that.
cookery is a lot more difficult than
Yeah.
one would think.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with five-spice powder. What is that?
It's usually called Chinese five spice. It's a blend of nutmeg, coriander, cinnamon, anise, and I believe ginger.
Yes.
So those are the five, and it's just kind of a blend. You can usually most markets, Whole Foods or most markets would carry a Chinese five spice.
Right, but again, you could, if you had those spices in your house, you could, make the mix yourself. Yes, sir.
The best
Ginger.
spices, yeah, ginger is
Ginger
one of the
great
top
for you.
spices. Both powdered form, but fresh is always, ginger is, obviously people put a lot in teas and marinades, and the basis of all, at least Chinese cooking, is ginger, garlic, and scallion. And that's the base to almost every one of their sauces. That's what they start out with.
They just on a note on honey, I read about that. Now they've said that honey is proven to be just as effective as cough syrup. So if you don't even need to have your cough syrup, just have honey in your tea or just a spoonful of honey, and that will help with your coughing. So I always like good food.
Yeah, and I feel like parsley
remedies.
has a lot of benefits too.
And mint.
Yeah,
Yeah, mint's great for digestion.
yeah. Parsley's good for breath. Yeah.
Yes.
Where can we buy the duck fat? Is it Whole Foods or?
Probably, I would say you're a butcher. I don't know if you know where you live. If you've got a local butcher, definitely you could call Whole Foods. You could probably just Google it online and see. I don't know if that. I'm sure some of these catering markets would ship things.
If you wind up buying a whole duck, the amount of fat that you can render off of a whole duck is incredible. Probably per duck, you're probably getting 2 cups of fat. There's a lot of fat. When you get the whole duck right up by the neck area, there's always a big thing of fat. By the inside of the legs, there's a lot of fat. So you just kind of clean that up and you put it in with a little bit of water, like a teaspoon of water, and all that duck fat, and you just kind of let it sit at a simmering rate, and it'll all just render down. And again, you can freeze it, you can refrigerate it if you're going to use it, but if you're not going to use it right away, you can put it in little small containers and freeze it. Today was a coated pan. That's what was, and again, usually with duck, I think the coated pan is probably a little bit easier because that duck fat would, yesterday there was a big discussion about
Cast iron.
cast iron. The duck breast would kind of be a nightmare, I think, in the cast iron. I think it would really stick to it. You don't want to really add any oil because there's so much fat anyway, so there's
Right.
no oil in the dish, so that's why you use the... Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Any other questions?
Well, we do have samples still coming around for those of you who have not gotten them yet. But please, one more time, thank you so much today for coming out,
You're
chefs.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On a completely different side note, I just wanted to do a little self-promotion while we have all these wonderful people in front of us. Brian and I, because I know some of you weren't here yesterday, we own a 26-room inn in Kennebunk, Maine, and have a restaurant there. And we just, we've gotten, our signature dish is our lobster pot pie. And we had just found out that it's going to be featured in Oprah's magazine as one of her spring favorite things. So we're very excited about that in April. And so we started shipping it because it's been becoming bigger. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that and to know that. And we'd be happy to send any samples to people as well. So
it's called the Kennebunk Inn, and it's right on Main Street in Kennebunk. We have cards up here, and the lobster pot pie is it's called mainlobsterpotpie.com. And if you order, I think by 2 o'clock, you have it the next day for dinner. All lobster meat shipped fresh. We do the pot pie, we do lobster rolls, we do a lobster pizza, mussels, so kind of a little taste of Maine heading, you know, anywhere you want.
Right.
Next town south. So
yeah.
We are a 3-mile drive to Kennebunkport.
And we're basically 3 miles from the beaches, and that's what southern Maine is. Maine is known as sort of a rocky coastline, but the southern parts, when you first drive up, those are our sandy beaches. So we have some really nice beaches, but some beautiful, picturesque, you know, the lobster boats, the cute little coves. Maine's a state of many little fingers of land. Another fact that I always love to tell people about Maine is if you stretched out the coastline, it would be as big as the United States, because we just have so many little fingers. So it's a really beautiful driving state. Yes, we do. Yes.
And it's, you know, summertime is definitely the most popular time, but Shannon and I always feel like the fall up there is particularly probably the most interesting. Great colors, everything's still open and still lively.
Yeah.
Great time to be in Maine.
Absolutely.
Right about now, not so great.
What? I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, for the colors, it really does. It's amazing how Columbus Day weekend seems to always be the best time for the fall foliage. It's because some trees just start to pop really soon. I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have another early, you know, we're gonna have an early fall, and then it's always around that Columbus Day weekend. But you know, end of September or September, I think is really nice because it's still sort of summery, but you're getting into the fall and the change of seasons. For us, that's our favorite time of year for chefs for menus. You know, you're getting all your squash and your gourds coming out and pumpkins and so it's a nice change from the summer, but it's a great place. Yes. Sure.
They are. We consider it as a larger appetizer at the restaurant. So it comes in like a little Le Creuset crock pot, which is about 8 ounces, and it's probably got about 4 ounces of chunked up tail knuckle claw lobster meat. It's got a little fresh corn, peas, and potatoes. And it's a simple lobster stock based broth. So
yeah. Well, we for pot pies, a lot of them, they typically take the puff pastry, cover them, you bake them in the oven. And what we found when we were coming up with this recipe, we really wanted a dish that we felt could be, you know, representative of the area of Brian and I, what we do. Brian's really great with stocks and sauces. I've had a pastry background. I cook all food, but I got a strong pastry training from a French chef, and so I do the puff pastry, and then lobster is main star ingredient. So it's a great dish that sort of encompasses, and it's just that comfort food which we try to you know, have in our restaurant. But what we do is we make the base separate on the stove to order, add in the lobster meat just at the end, and then while that's happening, we're baking off our puff pastry in the oven. So when it comes out, we just spoon it into the crock pot and then put that puff pastry on top. So that way the lobster meat doesn't get all rubbery and overcooked. And we always use fresh lobster meat. We're sort of... No, we do fresh. And again, when we ship, we do overnight shipping, which I'm trying to work with UPS with this Oprah connection to get them to drop some of those rates for us because it is expensive. New England, it's ground, which is great, so we can send that at a very affordable price. But we really wanted to keep with the integrity of the dish of how we had it in the restaurant. We want you to have that same experience in your home. You know, and I feel like if you're going to be eating Maine lobster, it should be coming fresh. If you're going to spend that money and time to do that, you should have the best product you can get. It can be frozen and can still be very delicious, but I think it's just our philosophy. We wanted to try to.
So yeah, if you purchase the pot pie online, basically you get the pot pie ingredients in a pouch that you can either heat up on the stove. You can actually boil it in the pouch itself, but we ship the puff pastry frozen on the side, and then you would just bake it in your oven for about 12 minutes.
Yep.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
you're putting your chef hat on. You're doing a little.
yeah. And then you can at least take credit for it.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Say I made this, so. And,
that could be scary.
well, we were the dish was featured on The Best Thing I Ever Ate on the Food Network, and our sales went up 400%.
Right.
Which was pretty crazy. And then in November it was on Food Paradise's Travel Channel's Food Paradise. So
and
it
they've
seems
also
to
featured we do a white pizza. It's a whole wheat crust with a herbed, basically Alfredo cream. We take a bunch of herbs and reduce them in cream and reduce that down, and then add Parmesan cheese so it makes a nice thick kind of paste. We put that on the pizza with baby spinach, roasted tomatoes, and then Havarti cheese. Bake that off, and then when it comes out again, we add that lobster meat on top, drizzle a little truffle oil, and so that as well. Yes, I tweeted. I don't know if you guys are into Twitter or not, but I'm really big on trying to promote and using this platform is amazing, and that's sort of how we ended up getting Oprah's attention, was tweeting to the creative director and Gayle King. And it was pretty neat to get something back.
Yeah.
Gayle King on New Year's Eve tweeted me they were so yummy, and I was like, this is so exciting.
Luckily, being in Maine, I mean, I'll never forget the first weekend of December is Christmas Prelude. So they have Santa Claus come in on a lobster boat. They have lobster trap Christmas trees, and it's a huge, huge production. It's almost like summer weekend in the middle of winter. And it was right when we just started promoting that the show was going to air. And at that point, our bartender worked as his day job was as a lobsterman, and we just got hit. And I remember just, I'm in the kitchen cooking. I got him on my cell phone, and I'm like, you got to bring lobster down here. So it was a quick growing experience for us, but we were fortunate enough to have a lobster connection. And like I said, we're 3 miles from the water, so all of our, the fish distributors up there are pretty amazing.
And it is still a seasonal area, where, although we're a year-round property, we definitely have a very dramatic high in the summer versus the winter. So that too, we know as we're gearing up towards summer, at least for the puff pastry, I can make that and freeze it, and so try to build up the.
We do.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, the pizza shell comes in one package, and then we ship the lobster meat a little bit separate with ingredients. We also ship lobster rolls, so we'll send you the brioche buns, the butter, and the lobster meat with a little bit of mayonnaise,
Yep.
and then we do Prince Edward Island mussels, and we do a compote butter, that like a rosemary and garlic butter that we would send out. So you can do a little taste of New England. It's actually perfect for tailgating.
The lobster rolls are. We went to a concert out in New Hampshire and brought just our buns, the butter, the mayonnaise, the lobster meat, and a little bowl and one, not an induction, but a little camp
Propane.
stove.
And from parking to eating lobster rolls, I think it took us 10 minutes.
Right.
We just walked out, turned on the grill, toasted up some buns, and
We're the
perfect
envy
lobster
of all
rolls.
of our tailgating partners.
It comes already shipped in the cooler, so it's a
Right,
package
exactly.
ready to go.
We were thinking we got to go after those tailgaters, the football guys.
Can you repeat that? Yes. Truffle oil, actually, I don't think can go bad, because truffle oil is actually not made from truffles. It's just a flavoring. I mean, it's really flavorful. If it's overdone, it can get a little too pungent.
Right.
But truffle oil will last.
I would just smell it, go with your nose and taste it. I mean, I'd say, over a year would maybe, I'd get rid of it, just get something fresh. But yeah, I think it should be able to last.
Yeah.
I feel like we had another question somewhere in there.
How do you find the difference between the winter and the summer lobster?
The winter, well, the difference between winter and summer, a lot of times is the shells are a lot different. You'll always hear hard shell, soft shell lobsters. Soft shells, usually a lot less in price. The issue is when you can crack them by hand, you don't even need the crackers or any of that. But when you crack into them, there's a lot more moisture. So the meat difference, the actual edible part, would be a lot less.
A lot of local people, really love the soft shells. They say they've got a sweeter taste by nature, that the claws are very tender. But again, like Brian said, it might be disappointing if you're that's why a lot of people or restaurants do hard shells, because we know the public, you're spending this money and you want to see, a nice piece of meat when you cut into that.
Yeah, and then this year, especially, the lobster business has really kind of grown back. It took a little bit of a hit. I mean, for us, it was great 2 years ago. I mean, lobsters, pound and a quarter lobsters was, costing you $4 a lobster. But for the lobster market, that has grown a lot. I know the Canadian market definitely affects the lobster pricing. My always thing with lobster is I think you don't ever really want to go more than a 2.5 pounder. I feel like that's when it starts to lose the integrity of what the lobster is.
Yeah, the prices definitely come down when the water warms up. The lobsters are moving more, so the lobstermen can catch more. So basically, September, October is a great time of getting good pricing for lobster. It's just more prevalent. Spring can be very tough because of the cold winters, and depending on winter storms, sometimes it can be really hard to get fresh lobsters.
Yeah. It's funny because originally in Maine, lobsters was considered prison food. They were caught in such abundance and they were so cheap that that's what they fed the prisoners. And I think they realized that that was a mistake, and they've changed the game so they're no longer getting lobster, but that was the origin.
Yes, sir.
We hear about boiling lobsters and cooking wise. When I lived in Maine, often they were steamed.
Yep.
So for your recipe, since you don't want to lose weight, only boil them or sometimes?
We boil them, and then what we do is we'll shock them. We'll pick out the meat, and then we return the shells back into that boiling liquid with vegetables and herbs, and that's the basis of the broth for the pot pie.
Yeah, but if we were just going to cook a steamed lobster or something just for your plate, that we weren't using the shells to produce the stock, I definitely, steaming is usually just easier. I think it comes out, well, for us, we have a convection steamer, so it's super easy. We set a timer, it goes, and it couldn't be simpler.
Broiling sometimes I feel like dries out the lobster meat, especially the tail. It's not my favorite way to prepare the lobster, is broiled or grilled. I like the either steamed or boiled.
Great.
Any other questions?
Oh, good. Did everyone get food? Did you guys get it? No.
I think there's more coming up.
Okay,
so
great.
We'll hang tight. And but again, thank you so much, Brian and Shanna, for coming out and giving these great demonstrations. We're going to get another round of applause for them.
Thank you.